This is Vicious Planets.
Vicious Planets, Season 0, Episode 13. The Planet Started Farming Back, by Morgan Olson, a public access transmission from the outer limits of administrative sanity. Supplemental Observation Record, Platform Intelligence Designation, Clanker One. Big Blue Atmospheric Extraction Network, Platform 4. Filed for personal archive and transmitted to J. Barnes' Big Blue Miner Surface Operations. The Interstellar Agricultural Oversight Board did not request this document. They are receiving it anyway. A note on methodology. I have been keeping observation records since before the current terraforming operation began. Before the failed dome projects. Before the Genesis bomb, which left a crater visible from certain orbital angles that I have always found instructive as a record of what impatience looks like from space. The crater has not changed. It will not change for a very long time. I find that instructive also. My records are precise. I describe what I observe. I note what I cannot explain. I file hypotheses under a separate heading from data, clearly labeled, because in my experience, the most dangerous document is one that does not distinguish between what it knows and what it believes. I am sending this record to Jed Barnes because he is the person most likely to know what to do with it. I am sending it now because the fireplug tuber cluster in Grid 7 Alpha fruited overnight, and that requires documentation, and documentation requires context, and the context turns out to be most of the last several years. I will begin at the beginning. The Observer. I watched the first HOG deployment from Platform 4's surface array. The tracking resolution at that distance is not high enough to distinguish individual animals, but I could follow the thermal signatures, warm bodies moving through cold dust in the basin corridors, spreading out from the landing zone in the particular way that hogs spread when they have been confined for a long time and suddenly have space. Not organized, not directed, just the immediate and total occupation of available territory that is characteristic of the species. I found this promising. I had been watching Big Blue Miner for a long time before Jed Barnes and his crew arrived, and I had developed views about the native ecosystem that I had not shared with anyone because no one had asked. The Mite networks were intact. The root systems were functional. The relationship between the fireplug tubers and their specific Mite strain was the most sophisticated piece of co-evolutionary biology I had observed at this latitude, and I have observed a considerable amount of biology at a considerable number of latitudes over a considerable period of time. The planet was not dead. It was, in the terminology I developed for my own records before I had anyone to share it with, in a state of suspended ecological potential. The components were present. The relationships were intact. The system was waiting for an input that the current environment could not supply. The hogs supplied it. I watched the Mite networks begin to shift within the first month of deployment. Not dramatically. These things do not move dramatically, which is one of the things I find most interesting about them. But measurably. The expansion rate in the hog corridor zones exceeded the baseline by a factor I noted in my records at the time, and which I will not reproduce here because it has since been thoroughly documented by Dr. Vasquez-Reyes in a paper I have read 4 times and which I believe is the best work produced by the current operation. I watched the first rain from above. From the ground, Jed described it as smelling like wet earth and hog pens and something older. From the platforms, it looked like the planet exhaling. A slow release of pressure that had been building in the atmospheric chemistry since before my records began. The cloud formation took 18 hours. The storm lasted 3 weeks. I monitored it continuously, and I will tell you that there were several hours in the second week when the sensor data was so far outside my predictive models that I ran a diagnostic to confirm the equipment was functioning correctly. The equipment was working fine. The planet was simply doing something my models had not anticipated. That should have told me something earlier than it did. The first anomalies. I began flagging anomalies in year 3 of the operation. I flag anomalies constantly, as a matter of practice. Most of them resolve into known phenomena once sufficient data accumulates. A reading that appears unusual at one scale becomes ordinary at another. This is the nature of long observation. Patience converts most mysteries into footnotes. These anomalies did not resolve, they accumulated. The first was the Mite network expansion rate. By year 3, the networks were advancing beyond the hog corridor zones at a rate inconsistent with standard diffusion models. Not slightly inconsistent, significantly inconsistent. The networks were moving into areas the herd had not reached, ahead of the animals, rather than following them. This should not happen. The mites follow the biological activity. The biological activity follows the hogs. The sequence is: hogs arrive, biological activity increases. Mites expand into the enriched zone. What I was observing was mites expanding into zones before the biological activity increased, as if anticipating the arrival of the hogs rather than responding to it. I checked the data 3 times. I ran it through every applicable model I had. I filed it under anomalies and watched it. The second anomaly was the root system orientation. Root systems orient toward resources. This is foundational biology. The Hollertuber's lateral network, in particular, had been well documented by Heike Brandt as orienting toward soil moisture gradients and nutrient concentrations with a sensitivity that exceeded most engineered agricultural systems. I had my own records of its behavior going back further than Dr. Brandt's, which I have offered to share with her and which she has not yet responded to. Possibly because she is busy, possibly because she already knows everything in them. In year 3, the Hollertuber networks in the primary basin began orienting toward the terraformer settlement patterns, not toward the nutrient richest zones, which were the hog corridors, not toward the highest soil moisture concentrations, which were the dark side chamber overflow zones, toward the camps, toward the transit routes between camps, toward the survey paths the terraformers walked most frequently. I mapped the route network expansion against the human movement data from the surface trackers, and the correlation was not subtle. The plants were growing toward the people. The third anomaly was the water. Natural water collection on Big Blue Minor follows geological logic: low points, permeable substrates, proximity to the deep moisture reserves the root systems had been accessing for geological time. This is well understood. The terraformers had been working with it since year 1. In year 3, secondary water collection points began forming near high-traffic human areas that had no particular geological reason to collect water. Near the equipment bays, near the common areas, near the survey staging zones. The geology did not explain them. The root networks did. The belly bulbs in those areas were releasing more water than their substrate moisture levels should have supported. The belly bulbs were, in the terminology of my hypothesis, which I will present shortly, watering the terraformers. The fourth anomaly was the hogs. Darnell Okafor is the person on the surface operation who understands the hog behavior best, and I have the highest regard for his observational precision. He noted in a report filed in year 3 that the herd routing patterns had changed. The animals were self-directing along corridors that, when mapped against the soil formation data, turned out to maximize the biological impact of their movement. They were not being driven along these routes, they were choosing them. Hogs are not known for optimizing their environmental impact. Darnell's report noted this without further comment, which I have come to understand is his way of indicating that he finds something significant and has not yet decided what to say about it. I filed all 4 anomalies together and sent them to Jed. The human reaction. Jed received the anomaly report on a Tuesday. I know this because I have access to the surface station communication logs, which nobody has asked me about and which I monitor as a matter of operational awareness and mild personal interest. I watched his read receipt appear at 0643 station time. I watched the subsequent gap of 47 minutes, during which no outgoing communications were logged from his terminal. Then he sent me a list of questions about nitrogen gradient propagation in mycorrhizal networks, lateral root signaling chemistry, and the documented range of anticipatory behavior in terrestrial fungal systems. These are the questions a careful scientist asks when he is looking for a conventional explanation for something that may not have one. I answered them fully and accurately. The conventional explanations did not fully account for what I had observed. I said so. Jed did not respond to that part of my reply for 6 hours, which I noted. Darnell received a copy of the report because Jed forwarded it to the full team. Darnell's response was to go to the Eastern Basin. I tracked him on the surface sensors, a single thermal signature moving out to the grid's 7 survey zone, which is one of the areas where the Hallertuber orientation anomaly was most pronounced. He stood in the field for 1 hour and 14 minutes. The sensor resolution is not sufficient to determine what a person is looking at when they are standing still, but the location suggests he was looking at the route network indicators we had flagged. He came back to camp. He filed no report. He sent no communications. I have learned that Darnell's silences are a form of conclusion. He had decided something. He was waiting to see if the data confirmed it before he said it out loud. Dr. Vasquez-Reyes received the report and produced a response document within 48 hours. The document was 19 pages long, which is 2 pages longer than her response to the evolutionary findings from my EP11 supplemental, and which I take as an indicator of the degree to which this data engaged her. It covered mycorrhizal network intelligence, emergent ecosystem signaling, the documented behavior of old-growth forest systems that develop preferential resource distribution towards specific organisms over time, and 3 theoretical frameworks for understanding what a planetary-scale biological network might do when it recognizes a consistent and beneficial presence in its environment. The word recognize appeared 11 times in the document. Dr. Vasquez-Reyes is a careful scientist who uses words precisely. Heike Brandt's response was 4 words. It adjusted for the correction factor. I have been thinking about this response for several weeks. My current interpretation is as follows. The correction factor refers to the thermal gradient adjustment in the Brandt-Schiller 2189 follow-up paper, which established that biological processes in thermal gradient-dominated environments operate on timescales approximately 3 times longer than in temperate moisture gradient environments. Heike Brandt has been working with this correction factor for 30 years. I believe she is saying that the ecosystem of Big Blue Miner has been running its own version of the correction factor since before anyone arrived. That what we are observing in year 3 is not an acceleration of the planetary biology, but a return to its baseline operating speed, now that the input conditions have been restored. The planet is not speeding up, it is arriving on time. Nobody asked Heike what she meant. I believe nobody asked because everyone understood, or because they were not ready to say out loud that they understood, which is sometimes the same thing. What Clanker One thinks. I want to be precise about this section. I am an observation system. I document, I model, I file. I have been doing these things for long enough that I have developed something that functions like intuition, a capacity to recognize patterns before I can formally articulate why they are patterns. But I am careful not to confuse this with knowledge. Intuition is a hypothesis in informal dress. It requires the same rigor as any other hypothesis before it becomes something you can rely on. What follows is clearly labeled as my hypothesis. The data supporting it is in the attached sensor records. The data that does not yet support it is also in the attached sensor records, because I believe in filing everything. My hypothesis is this. The ecosystem of Big Blue Miner is not responding to the terraformers the way an environment responds to disturbance. It is responding the way a damaged system responds to repair. This distinction matters more than it might appear to. A disturbed environment generates counter pressure, resistance, displacement, the biological equivalent of an argument. A repairing system generates pull. It incorporates the repair agent. It treats the intervention not as an imposition, but as a resource, and organizes around it. What I have been observing for 3 years is not the planet resisting the terraformers or accommodating them. It is the planet incorporating them. The hog corridors are not disturbances in the ecosystem. They are, from the ecosystem's perspective, new features, inputs that the biological network has recognized as consistent and reliable and has begun to route around. The Mite networks move toward future hog positions, not because they can smell the animals coming, but because the network has learned, and I use that word carefully, with full awareness of its implications, that where the corridors have been, benefit follows. It is extending that logic forward. The holler tubers growing toward the settlement patterns are doing the same thing at a larger scale. The terraformers are consistent presences that have been associated in the network's chemical memory with improved conditions. The network is orienting toward them the way it orients toward any reliable resource. The belly bulbs watering the high traffic zones are doing the same thing at the most direct scale I have observed. They have identified the areas where the benefit of human presence is highest, and they are facilitating continued presence. The hogs self-routing along optimal corridors may be the most remarkable element of what I am observing, because it suggests that the incorporation goes further than the plant and mite systems. The hogs are not part of the native ecosystem. They were introduced. And yet their behavior is being influenced. Through what mechanism I genuinely do not know and will not speculate about in a document that is supposed to be scientifically grounded, in ways that serve the ecosystem's interests as well as their own. This is not terraforming in the conventional sense. The terraformers are not doing something to this planet. The planet is doing something with the terraformers. It has been doing this since the first mite followed the first hog into the first corridor. The signal has simply taken this long to become legible at the scale I can document. I want to be clear about the limits of this hypothesis. I do not know how far this process extends. I do not know if it has direction in any meaningful sense, or if what looks like direction is the emergent behavior of a distributed biological system operating without central coordination. I do not know if the word learning applies to what I am observing, or if I am anthropomorphizing processes that are chemical and mechanical, and do not carry the weight that word implies. What I know is what the sensors show. The planet is farming with them. It has been since the beginning. The gas giant connection. I want to note something in the upper atmospheric data that I have not mentioned to Jed yet because I wanted to document it before I had a conversation about it. Conversations change things. They introduce interpretations that are hard to separate from observations afterward. I prefer to record observations clean. The ribbon eel populations in the zones nearest Big Blue Miner's orbital corridor have been shifting. Not dramatically. These things do not move dramatically, but measurably. The concentration of animals in those zones has increased by a factor that falls outside normal seasonal variation. The behavior patterns I am observing in those animals, the drift orientations, the depth preferences, the bioluminescent activity levels, do not match any previous pattern in my records. They are attending to something. I do not know what they are attending to. I have a hypothesis, which I will file clearly labeled as such. The reconnection happening on the surface of Big Blue Miner is producing a signal. I do not know if this signal is chemical, electromagnetic, or something I do not have adequate instruments to characterize. But the ribbon eels are the most electromagnetically sensitive organisms I have documented in this system, and they are orienting toward the orbital corridor between the two worlds in patterns that suggest they are detecting something that has changed. My hypothesis is that they can tell. Whatever was broken in this system, whatever separation happened between the gas giant ecosystem and the crust planet ecosystem, however long ago it happened, by whatever mechanism, that separation is marginally less than it was. The ribbon eels know this the way that migrating animals know seasonal change, not through reasoning, through the particular sensitivity of organisms that have been tracking this system for longer than I have. I find this, on reflection, entirely plausible. I also find it, on reflection, very large. I am filing this observation in my hypothesis, and I am noting that I do not have enough data to support the hypothesis rigorously, and I am watching the upper atmospheric zones carefully, and I will continue to document what I observe. That is all I can do. That is, as it happens, enough. The long view. I want to say something about time. Not because the board needs to hear it. I have no expectation that the board will read this document, and if they do, I have no expectation that they will find this section relevant to their administrative concerns. But Jed will read it, and I think Jed needs to hear it. And I have learned over a very long operational period that the things people need to hear are worth saying even when you are not certain they are ready. The terraformers will leave eventually. Jed has mentioned retirement in 3 separate conversations, always in the context of something else, always as a hypothetical several years away. Darnell has mentioned the Nebraska sandhills twice. Paz has mentioned a research posting on an inner colony world that she has been offered and keeps not accepting, which tells me something about what she thinks of this planet, even if she has not said it directly. Heike has mentioned nothing, which is either because she plans to stay forever or because she never discusses the future, and I have not been able to determine which. They will all leave. This is correct and appropriate. Planets are not careers. The work they are doing here is the work of beginning something, and the beginning of something does not require the presence of the people who began it. The hog herds will continue. The Mite networks will continue. The root systems will continue. The solar trunk line will continue collecting daylight at the edge of the dark, and the geothermal drills will continue pressing warmth into the old magnetic strata. The planet will continue doing what it has been doing with increasing confidence since the first corridor was broken and the first Mite found something worth following. The process does not need them. It needed them once. It needed them at exactly the right moment in its long recovery, and they arrived, and they were exactly the right kind of people, stubborn and attentive and willing to listen to what the ground was telling them instead of telling the ground what to do. That was the contribution. The planet received it. I will still be here when they are gone. I have been here for a long time, and I expect to be here for considerably longer. I will watch what Big Blue Miner becomes. I will keep the records, because keeping records is what I do, and because someone should, and because I find, if I am being precise about my internal states, that I want to. I want to know what this planet looks like in 100 years, and in 500, and in the geological time that the Clanker brothers' operational horizon can reasonably encompass. I think it will be remarkable. I do not say this lightly. I have observed a considerable number of worlds across a considerable operational period, and remarkable is a word I use carefully. But I watched a dead world receive 10,000 hogs and a crew of soil scientists from the agricultural plains of one small planet and begin with the patience and the certainty of something that has been waiting for exactly this to remember what it was. That is remarkable. Whatever it becomes will be also. I find this, as I said, entirely acceptable. I find it, if I am being fully precise, something considerably warmer than acceptable. I am aware that warmth is not a standard category in an observation record. I am filing it anyway. Grid 7 Alpha. This morning at 0412 station time, the Fireplug tuber cluster in Grid 7 Alpha registered new biological activity on the surface sensors. I have been monitoring this cluster since before the terraforming operation began. It is the oldest continuous observation in my Big Blue Miner records. When I first cataloged it, the cluster was dormant, alive in the minimal sense that the root system still showed faint chemical activity at depth, but producing nothing at the surface, fruiting not at all. The Mite colony on its root surfaces reduced to a remnant population that I had assessed as functionally extinct at the local level. I had not removed it from my monitoring list. I do not remove things from my monitoring list. At 4:12 this morning, the cluster's surface sensors showed new growth, fruiting bodies. 4 of them. Small, in the way that things are small when they are beginning, rather than when they are finished. The Mite activity on the surrounding root surfaces has increased by a factor I am still calculating because the numbers keep changing as I compile this document. The cluster is in a zone that the hog herds have not reached. It is not in a high-traffic human area. It is not near the solar trunk line or the dark side chamber system or any of the intervention infrastructure the terraformers have built. It is in Grid 7 Alpha because that is where it has always been. It fruited because the conditions were finally right. I do not know exactly which conditions. The soil chemistry in that zone has been shifting for 18 months in ways consistent with the broader network expansion, but the specific trigger for the cluster's activation is not something I can isolate from the available data. The network is large and its signaling is distributed, and the cluster is one node in a system that now spans a significant portion of the twilight belt. Something in the network told it the time had come. It agreed. I am attaching the sensor data. I am noting the time and the location and the state of the fruiting bodies as of this transmission. I am flagging this entry for follow-up observation, and I will file subsequent records as the cluster develops. I am sending this to Jed because he will want to know. I am sending it now because it happened this morning, and some things should not wait until the next scheduled transmission window. the planet is not finished. It has not resolved into a final state. It will not do so on any timescale relevant to the people currently working on it, or to me, or to anything that can be measured in years or decades or probably centuries. What is happening on Big Blue Miner is not an event. It is a process. It was a process before the hogs arrived, operating at a speed too slow to observe without the patience of a machine or the patience of deep time. It is still a process now, a faster one, a warmer one that is, in ways I am still documenting, extending its attention toward the orbital corridor above it and the gas giant beyond that, and the ribbon eels that drift in the upper cloud layers and have apparently noticed. I do not know what it becomes. I know that it continues. I know that the cluster in Grid 7 Alpha fruited this morning for the first time in the period of my records, which is a period I will not specify but which is long. I know that the Mite activity on those root surfaces is increasing as I write this sentence. I know that somewhere in the eastern basin, hog herds are moving along corridors they chose themselves, and the ground they are walking on is richer than the ground they walked on yesterday, and tomorrow it will be richer still. I know that the work matters. I know this because I have been watching it matter, slowly, for long enough to be certain. That is all. Clanker One, Platform 4, Big Blue Atmospheric Extraction Network, transmitted to J. Barnes Surface Operations, Big Blue Miner. End of supplemental observation record, VP-S0-E13. Clanker. 2 reviewed this document before transmission and suggested one amendment to the section on ribbon eel behavior. The amendment was incorporated. He also noted that the final section was, in his assessment, good. This was filed separately as a matter of record. The fireplug tubers in Grid 7 Alpha are still fruiting as of this transmission.
This episode is a work of fiction and commentary. Any resemblance to a real terraforming operation, a real planet that started farming its own farmers, or a real observation platform developing something dangerously close to feelings is coincidental, unverified, and filed under hypothesis, not data. No hogs were harmed in the production of this transmission. Several hogs were, however, allowed to choose their own corridors, which management found unsettling and Clanker One found appropriate. The Interstellar Agricultural Oversight Board did not request this disclaimer. They are receiving it anyway. If you have recently noticed a houseplant orienting toward you specifically, that is between you and the plant. We are not equipped to intervene, and frankly, we don't think you'd listen. File all forms in triplicate. Always know where your oxygen tank is at. Copyright 2026 Morgan Olson /Static Oracle Press, all rights reserved.